All right, welcome to another exciting episode of Scaling Secrets podcast. I am your host, Alex Mayhas, and today we have a true visionary joining us, someone who has revolutionized the health and wellness industry with his expertise and passion. Everybody, please give a warm welcome to Mason Taylor, the CEO and founder of Superfeast, Australia's leading purveyor of deodio, tonic herbs and mushrooms. With a decade-long immersion into the health and research education, Mason is not only a top Teos tonic herbalist, but he's also a sought-out after thought leader in the field. So everybody get ready to be inspired as we dive into the world of the holistic entrepreneurship and power of ancient wisdom in modern business. Mason, it's an honor to have you. How are you doing, man?
Thanks for coming. Yeah, thanks for bringing me on. Thanks for that. I'm feeling revved up. Let's do it.
Awesome. So Mason, your journey from a garage startup to an Australian leading purveyor of tonic herbs and mushrooms is truly remarkable. I was going through your research and everything. So, can you share just some key strategies and insights into how you mapped this evolution and built your generational legacy?
And thank you for assuming the best of me that I had some type of strategy or plan. And I think I will go back, in retrospect, what I'm doing a lot at the moment, 12 years in, starting just, very much like a business that had no business plan, me not having any traditional business training, to starting it in my mum's spare room, going into her garage, as you said, and then getting to the point now where we're an international company. The thing that I've been really thinking about, because I still own 100% of the company, and I'm actually realizing, talking to a lot of my friends, how rare it is to have well, in my world, I know a lot of people doing it, because I seek them out probably in your guys', how rare it is to have well, in my world, I know a lot of people doing it, because I seek them out probably in your guys' world as well, but like, just how different the map is, and how significantly different the business journey is when you go from a founder's position to growing a business without taking on partners, without taking on external philosophies, and you slowly along the way upskill yourself and your business, but in a way that you're in touch with something that was really at the source of why you started in the first place, and allowed the structure to be informed by that by that essence. And I think it's a lot harder than people think, and it's a lot more grinding on the founder's psyche and their own evolutionary journey to do it, and not just do an off the shelf dilution model. And I've been thinking about that a lot. How I did it was I've now mapped out and made a distinction that goes beyond just the classic what everyone's talking about at the moment in terms of like, be a why business. Start with the why, and a purpose-driven business, and all these businesses that are searching for meaning, but they can't find themselves being moved internally. They're not getting, like, they can get mentally inspired and motivated, and they do with these mentally produced purpose statements that don't actually go to a place where it moves you in your soul and makes you feel like, my gosh, I'm really bloody contributing to creating something in the world here. They're seeking it, and so they're just getting these, I call them weekend at Bernie businesses, because the soul of the business isn't there or isn't alive, and so they're going and putting sunglasses on this sole purpose of the business and masquerading it around and going like, hey everyone, look how much purpose we have, and it's like, dude, we can see right through that. Your soul's dead. Bernie's dead. So I've focused myself on going, as a founder, and talking to a lot of other founders, I don't think we respect enough the process that a founder, or founders obviously can go through this together, go through in years leading up to the birth of an organization. You're working with your own muse, is the only way I kind of like to really put it, that everyone can relate to. Muse, doesn't feel super esoteric, and something that is like even the most brainiac person can listen to, like Nick Cave or like an artist to talk about working with the muse to create art, and what it's like to have ideas come in and out of your space. And for me, I had years and years of lightning bolt moments, and this is what has mapped me to create a successful company. at this point is I'm very aware of where the source idea of my business came from. That source idea is an expression of my muse and a part of my purpose or meaning for being here. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm feeling I need to express this out into the world more than just like, I was very interested in deinstitutionalizing health, going back and connecting with lineages and traditions and seeing them introduced into the world so people weren't being mind warped and made to think that they are reliant on institutional health and into believing that these doctors are just these holy priests that that have all the answers. And likewise, people, because of that institutionalization and not able to have appropriate relationships and boundaries with those institutions, be aware of where they're really amazing and aware where no, you're delusional, that they are not amazing in this arena, and so therefore you're not just crossing your fingers and hoping you don't get sick. These are all things I was feeling, and I'm like, I want to express this further. I really want to see a dramatic, I want to eliminate as much as possible. This isn't, these are non-logical statements. This is part of my artistry. In my views, I'm allowed to, so I just want founders to remember you're allowed to be unrefined when you're working with your source idea. That's not what eventually the company represents. The company will go through that process. So that's where I was at, exactly. And I was also sick of seeing so much degeneration that I saw as unnecessary. A lot of the time, everything happens for a reason, yes, but people can learn their lessons early so they don't have to go through the degeneration and disease cycle and therefore arrive in their elderhood physically strong, emotionally not projecting on everyone around them, and in touch with the thing, their unique expression of who they are. And I started feeling it really hard to the extent where I walked out of university and I was just like, I want to dismantle institutions like you in the sense of just how egoically off your head you are and not acknowledging that there's any other path. So that was my messy, what I now call the source idea, a part of my muse that I went and I kept on following that source idea and going, what do you want to become? Until then Superfeast was created, and it's a very good distinction in terms of defining the why and the purpose of the business, because people enmesh the founder with the organization, or the founder enmeshes themselves, and then it's hard to kind of like retrieve yourself after a while. I defined my source idea. It's long-winded. I can go through the feeling of exactly what happened when I fell into my body and felt my own fork in the road moments, so on and so forth. That's all defined, and that's in the constitution of my business. It is the anchor for the direction that the business goes in. Now, after I started the company, that's when birthed the refined why, which I call the evolutionary purpose of the company. And the evolutionary purpose of Superfeast is to dramatically reduce disease and degeneration and create superhumans who are able to enter into the realm of elderhood. So you can see the evolutionary purpose is refined and it's punchy, and you can go on to go like, how do we do this? We do this through connecting to an old style of lineage in terms of philosophy and sourcing of our herbs, and then what we do badass medicinal mushrooms, adaptogens, and Taoist tonic herbs. So there's tiers there, but what can never happen in my business now that I've got a constitution there is no one can ever misinterpret the evolutionary purpose. Because in the future, and this is what founders are scared of. If I'm not there, even though I've got a purpose statement, so in my instance, someone could come in and go, 10 years after I leave and be like, you know what, we've tried this, it's not growing fast enough. Really, pharmaceuticals is where we're going to do the most prevention of disease and convince everyone. But since we've got, the source idea belongs to the founder, and you always need to be able to follow a thread between the evolutionary purpose, which can shift and change. Likewise, the how and the what can shift and change, because we're dealing with living organisms here that have their own want, and we are stewarding and facilitating their evolution. But it's always connected to that source idea. You always need to be able to find a thread back, and that's in my constitution. And now that I've finally got governance in my business, where we can really go and interpret, and even though there's a lot of freedom in roles in my business, we can make sure that you can go, tell me exactly how that decision you made was in the best interest of us realizing the evolutionary purpose of this organization. That's been my map. That's what's mapped out my success.
Yep. 100%. And yeah, just going off of that, like how long did it take you to like really build that roadmap out, and how much trial and error did you have to go through to you really it stuck? It was stuck in place and everything was starting to click for you.
Look, I've been really fortunate that I got in a position in around medicinal mushrooms and these adaptogens probably like 5 years before they really became a thing. Not only just in Australia, like in America as well. So I have had a lot of time in terms of we've got good margins, which is probably something important because it's taken me probably a decade to really get there in understanding this map. Not that no one's ever talked about it before. There's lots of books. There's Buckminster Fuller has his business models there. There's Holacracy, there's Reinventing Organization. These kinds of organizations, Ken Wilber talks about that they're a teal level organization. They've gone beyond hierarchy, gone beyond the flat family structure, and now moving into an organism-based business model. It's all there. It took me a decade to probably come to terms with, like, deal with all my own psychological crap, kind of grow up a little bit, get over my Peter Pan syndrome, and it took a long time. Not that the theoretical answers weren't there, and I'm actually just jotting down everything at the moment because I've just gone through probably the biggest hump in terms of rolling out the structure of my organization in alignment with this, that what I was talking about was kind of like, you could almost say it's like the esoteric and spiritual aspect, and it's the most important aspect of the business. But I think because I lived there and knew the vision so strong, it didn't matter that the HR and a lot of the governance, the role, the evolution of role descriptions, like allowing there to be like proper accountability on people, not making excuses for people, me not being so, I just wanting to be so nice and not be judged and be a cool, hip, new business owner, being
trendy,
way over generous and not cultivating the ability to share with people the things that they deserve to hear in terms of, you don't have this skill set and here is your opportunity to gain this skill set, but just so you know, we're going to be you need to choose this and you're going to be accountable in the most loving way you can possibly communicate that. Getting used to that, and so I've just been able to allow a few people to spread their wings and move on, and like a lot of people who are like, no, people can't leave ever, this is just like a family, and that's probably the moment when I really can't stand when people say the business is like a family. I think it's so disrespectful to families, and I realized I was bypassing dealing with my family shit by saying, oh, my new tribe in Byron Bay is my family, my business is my family. You have a family, mate, and you're just not acknowledging the dysfunction that's there, and going in, like actually being in your family. Your family is your family. That is blood. There is absolute necessity. There's a lot that you are never ever going to avoid. Now, when it comes to a business, here we are people, and let's just like, I love the word colleagues. I think but whatever word works. Think about, we are people that have no obligation of being around each other. We have no obligation of loyalty to each other, but we unite around this, in this instance, like evolutionary purpose of a company, or even in other businesses that are more institutional, align in providing a service or a product or a platform for the sake that we need to be able to get money and provide for ourselves, and we try and keep, it's such a unique environment. When people say family, I'm like, no, please don't bring your family bullshit here. This isn't going, you're going to be inappropriate. And that's what happened in my business. That's what happens with flat structure businesses, where it's democratic and everyone's feelings prioritize, or just as important as the evolutionary purpose. And so I've had to grow and acknowledge, dude, you founded this. I was at the very bottom when we birthed this organizational chart. That has a lot of weight and a lot of authority. And I also, actually, Alex, I've realized I've put this in the Constitution as well recently, we just kind of amended it. there was a promise. At the moment, my mum had a stroke about 6 months into the company being created, and that's when I was like, holy shit, like, I'm going to have to actually take this business seriously, or some business seriously, because I was just such a free-ranging, vagabonding scallywag at that time that just was just like, I wasn't even selling mushrooms and that, I was selling superfoods through Superfeast, and I was just at the beach most of the day, I wasn't working on it, and I was like, okay. So I was outside of Mum's rehab, and we just got out of the hospital, and we're in the rehab. She's like really severely disabled now, and I'm like, all right. So when I stood, I was like, all right, I'm going to do this, and I looked at, like, I kind of felt into Superfeast, the organization, or the core of it, and I said, right, here's the deal. I'll do this, but you need to, like, ensure that Mum has everything she needs to continue on her, whether it's a healing journey or just living luxury for the last years or whatever it is. You have to provide for her, and I want to be provided respectfully. And that's all 100%. I said. And I'd forgotten 100%. That promise. And I'd forgotten that I have the right to that promise. And if the business model is, if the profit and the GP and the asset portfolio and everything isn't reflecting a capacity for that business to fulfill its promise, then you're completely out of alignment, and there's nothing you can do about it, because that's the objective reality of what happened when you founded as that company and made that deal.
100%. And I loved how you said too, separating, your personal life from the business. And I see so many corporations, even in the US here too, that they struggle to keep that so true. They try to say, we're one big family, and it's really hard, especially as an entrepreneur, to balance that, because, you might love the people you work with, but you also, like you said, you come home to your family every day. So you have to find ways to separate that and balance that and recharge. So, yeah, I love that. So you mentioned, medicine, mushrooms, and herbs, how that can unlock just like the spiritual potential of those in business, looking to, make a huge impact, improve their life. So can you explain just like how it works? Just dive in and, share any personal experiences or like stories that highlight just transformation powers through, things that you've discovered.
So on the level that's like really relatable quickly, what we do is like these medicinal mushrooms, these tree mushrooms, functional mushrooms, very trendy, and a lot to do with immune system and nervous system regulation, endocrine regulation, and likewise adaptogens, which are these herbs, maybe you've heard about them, just help increase people's capacity to regulate and stay regulated, and perhaps find new ways of getting into harmony. So that's like they're big in the performance space. They all came from very old herbal traditions. In this sense, what happened is Taoist herbalism. So Taoist is an ancient Chinese philosophy. It's essentially rooted in shamanism. It's just about staying aligned with nature as much as possible, and nature, beyond just the earth, nature, and our own true nature, so that however you reach your potential in terms of you're an elder and you're rad, rather than just like something that could have been. You're refined in the personality and your contribution in whatever that means. And you're virtuous, and you've got some connection to your purpose. That's the core of Taoism. It's not the religious. It became religious to an extent there, and that's not. But we go back to the source. So as a part of Taoism, and when I was saying I want to annihilate this disease, I was putting this purpose out there. You couldn't stop these mushrooms and herbs. Yes, I was taking them, but I was like, I'm never going to be able to sell these. There's too much noise in the space in America. And there was no one selling in Australia. This is how good I am at business. I thought that there was no room. So they rammed into my business because I was talking to people, everyday mums and students, and they're just like, oh my God, like I can't get sick again this winter. I'm feeling lost, and they're like coming and talking to me at the Superfeast stall, and I'd be like, well, I don't know, man. Like, they're like, should I take spirulina? I'm like, God, no, that's not going to help. Go and order this. And eventually I started ordering these mushrooms, but I realized that I'm not someone who can just focus on product. I need to be able to talk about a philosophy that is behind the product, but also I need that product to create very exceptional results for people. That any business, you'd understand, the only really good businesses, especially founder-owned ones, are the ones where the testimonials and the feedback aren't contrived and forced, and that's what actually nourishes the soul. You're like, holy shit, this is amazing.
Exactly,
the Taoist herbs and the Taoist philosophy says, look, the only thing we're trying to do here is protect and cultivate what's called the treasures of the body. And so this is what it comes down to. The treasures being Jing, Qi, and Shen. So when we look at Jing, Jing is our genetic potential. It is highly related to the physical body, but you can't just say it's the physical body. So the Jing treasure, it really is the baseline and the foundation, where it includes your sexual function, highly related to your hormonal function, but especially sexual function, your bone strength, your knee strength, your lower hips. And so you think about someone who gets to 80, 90 or 100 and is still able to walk up a hill, that person protected their Jing and also probably had a strong constitution to begin with. Not everyone is, not everyone's got those genes, but that's the whole, what we realize is if you are someone who, I have a lot of problem with like my sexual function, or I have weak bones, I don't have good stamina, there's so many signs to show which treasure is the one that you need to kind of be focusing on so that you can get to the end of your life and have them still intact. That's where you'd focus on the Jing herbs, and so they're the ones where a lot of the time, eucommia barks, goji, cordyceps, deer antler velvet, and these are miraculous herbs for the West, because we're all burning the candle at both ends, and that's okay. As all the Taoists say, you're allowed to get tired, but you're not allowed to get exhausted. And so the Jing herbs, the Jing formula at Super Feast, is there for people to work with and start getting a feeling back in their body. Yes, pour the energy back into the kidneys where the Jing lives and get the battery pack of the body charged back up so you're not running on empty. Feel all that emerge and come back, but then you actually get a better relationship with that thing that's called your Jing. And so that's what's cultivated alongside your energy is cultivated, but it's your personal awareness of what your Jing is when you use these herbs. And that's, and I'll just quickly go through the Qi and Shen, and then we'll start looking at some of these the things that people have said. Qi is just simply your vitality. You've got a strong base of the Jing. Qi is what animates you. You're up and you're moving your arms around, you're moving emotions, moving thoughts, and transforming things in your body. It's the spark in the machine, and that comes it's highly from our spleen and our lungs, transforming what we breathe and what we eat into the kinetic energy that we use to get through the day. So Qi herbs like astragalus, white atractylodes, Schizandra, magical herbs, bring a spark to your life, and that is a very important treasure, but all of them serve to cultivating Shen. And Shen is that unique connection we have to our own spirituality, our love. It's also the personality, the refining of the personality, and it's where our virtuousness gets cultivated and expressed. So we can move into actually cultivating the capacity to go from anger to patience, say, and grounded planning and vision. And so quite often we don't know what's going to happen with these herbs. We tell people, yes, that you're going to have some short-term benefits, but it is what we're looking for is you working with them for decades, like you long-term with any physical practice. But it doesn't mean in the beginning. Sometimes we've had people take reishi mushroom, which is a primary Shen herb, and all of a sudden feel so truly connected to their own purposefulness that they've literally called us and have gone, I don't know what the heck is going on with that mushroom, but I just wanted to meditate, and I immediately knew that I needed to quit my job and go and start on this path. And that's happened a lot with reishi mushroom. People have all of a sudden called after taking reishi or Shen blend is another one we recommend for people who want to get into this kind of space and feel that connectedness. People have taken Shen and been like, I knew I was still trying to I'm going through something really big, and I physically knew I was kind of okay, I was still exercising, I'm eating well, but I didn't realize I was focusing on the wrong place. They took Shen, and all of a sudden they were able to cultivate a quieter mind and get into a place of acceptance that they had years to go through in this arduous journey that they were on. And all of a sudden they're like, I can't believe it. I'm accepting it. I'm not resisting it anymore. To be honest, the mushrooms, people take lion's mane, and it was 2 years after a stroke, taking a lion's mane, which is a spleen tonic. It's a beautiful neural tonic, and gone, my smell came back. I've had people take my mushroom formula, Mason's mushrooms, and be like, they had crippling social anxiety, they couldn't leave their town for 3 years. And then they come and meet us in Brisbane, a major metropolitan 2 hours away from where they live, the next weekend. And they're like, I don't understand what happened here, but my nervous system isn't screaming anymore. People who have gone through absolutely like mind-boggling results of taking mushrooms alongside, you know, like chemo and radio kind of therapies, and not to help with the immune side of things, which there's a lot of data to say they can, just to ensure they have an immune system when they get out the back end of treatment. And oncologists and doctors being like, I don't know, people are never this healthy after these kinds of treatments. It's wow. And then entrepreneurs as well, like, you know, like there's a lot there. They're really beautiful herbs, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Definitely life-changing. And I think that, you know, like you said too, long term, you know, you're taking them for the long term. So it definitely experimenting too once you start taking them. So yeah, just keeping that in mind. Yeah, so just going off of that, you know, like the concept of, you know, just holistic entrepreneurship, for me, it's always been really fascinating. So I'm curious, based on like, how do you transform, you know, like your personal ideas and philosophies into business success, and like what advice would you give to young entrepreneurs looking to create a business that aligns specific to their values?
Yeah, gosh, I mean, I would remember, just go back and work with your muse. Remember, this is going to dominate you for a while, and you know your identity is going to get wrapped up in you. You know, in this instance, for me, becoming like someone who's like a healer and who's like raging against the machine, so on and so forth. But just remember, it's an aspect of you, and this is, you know, it's just a, you know, it's a fun game for you to have that source idea expressed into something, and then to an extent, you need to work as fast as possible to figure out what structures you need to put around it to make it a self-regulating organism, where that baby that you created can go and find its own feet within a few years without being dependent on you. Because then, obviously, if you're like me, you'll get resentful towards maybe not it, but life or yourself.
Yep.
And the prison that you've created for yourself. I would also just be, if you really want to express and have the right to express something like that, and have it go out into the world and create genuine impact and something that moves you, when you really, not just like, oh, intellectual, I contributed and I had purpose. No, if you really want to feel moved by what you've created and what you've contributed, you just be ready to see it out. You know, you don't know how long it's going to take and how much crap it's going to bring up of you in the dojo of your business manifestation. So you just need to get ready and be like, look, this could take 20 years before this finds its footing. This might take 2 years. I don't know. And just prepare for that. Go, what happens if it does take 20 years? What happens if it does take 10 before I really start seeing it find its own feet? And plan for that. Don't just cross your fingers and think that it's going to be 2 years, you're going to be getting paid $200,000. Maybe you will. And maybe if that's the deal and you're like, I'm not doing it any other way, then you need to start thinking about the roadmap a little bit more, and perhaps creating a boundary really quickly between the psychological dojo and just like, I don't have time for this to bring shit up with me right now. I'll get to that later down the track. And so maybe you need to make the business a little bit more generic in that sense early on. So that's what I'd say. You really got to plan it out. Like, you know, same if you're going into like having a hard conversation with an employee or a team member, you don't just be like, oh gosh, I really hope this goes well. You write down, like, what if it goes well? What if it goes a little bit bad? What if it goes really bad? You know, this is what and so you're actually in reality.
100%. Yep. I had a mentor that always says, you know, it's okay to be negative sometimes and plan for the worst. It can help you and it could save you a lot of headaches in the future. I also like how you touched too, you know, like you should really be creating systems, especially those first couple years, creating systems that's going to really help the business grow so you don't have to work in the business. You know, you can just work on it. So, but yeah, you know, just going off of that, I'm really curious to just hear, you know, Superfeast's, you know, goals without going too much into details or giving too much away. But, you know, let's say like next 2 to 3 years, some big goals that you're looking forward to with the company.
In the next 2 to 3 years, it's pretty clear. The main one internally is to have have governance really grounded into the company, and really re-rolling out the constitution, and really see the constitution and all its elements, and rather than the values, we have the virtues here in this business. Really see them expressing themselves in the company, and see a lot more distributed authority and autonomy within the company, but likewise a lot more authority given to those people who are in C-suite. It's I'd probably be looking to 10x where the US company is at now, which is a little bit easier than 10xing the Australian company.
Yeah.
It's a newer entity, and likewise population and everything like that. We've just gone, it's about probably getting, it's probably going to take me about 2 years to really get leads in key seat leads for the heads of departments. That's another big one that I've got in mind. And over here in Australia, it's to really expand into the pharmacy. Is that what you call them over there? Chemists? Pharmacy? To really expand into the pharmacy market here in Australia. And likewise into sports nutrition. Start working with a lot of football teams is a big vision that we have. And then I think probably a couple of, at least one more export market established as well. I think within the 3 years, we're definitely going to be looking at Europe and and for Australia, just it's more or less we're in a good sweet spot. So I've got a new CFO on now, and it's just establishing over the next few years a really good strategy around our war chest and how we use debt, and establishing our key philosophy for over the next 10 years, how we want to be working with debt, whether it's realistic for us to not have it and utilize, kind of more short-term debt without anything really going against the balance sheet, playing around that, and also getting into bulk. I want to start getting into the bulk offering of herbs and start becoming that platform service that provides these herbs, just not through my company, but I've got such high-quality herbs that are, it's the herbs we work with. I don't like to compare them with anyone like growing mushrooms in labs or anything. That's a different market. But for us, there's a 2,000-year-old text in China called the Shenong Ben Sao Jing, and that tells you how to source these herbs, essentially so that they have the maximum capacity to protect and cultivate treasures in the body. And it's really special seeing the renaissance of that in working with independent farmers who don't have to, not losing as many people from the villages up in the mountains. They don't, they own and the village gets the prosperity of the farm, because we just have, that's the kind of, so I want to help revive that and see more companies use that. That's really exciting me, seeing other brands that aren't my own creating those same kind of testimonials that we are. So that's probably where I'm looking at.
I love that. Definitely expanding in even like you mentioned into Europe, countries in Europe too. That's awesome. I'm really looking forward to seeing it grow. Last question, we'll wrap it up here. Get a little personal. Just what are some things you want to be remembered for as an entrepreneur or a business owner? What type of legacy, if any legacy, do you want to leave behind?
Yeah, I'm kind of really reevaluating that at the moment as I start respecting the responsibility that I've had, that I've kind of shirked by being the nice guy and wanting to be seen as inspirational by everyone, and I wanted to see as everyone who leaves the company always thinks nice things about me, and it kept me really quite small and avoiding having really difficult conversations. So what I would most like to be, I really feel it's in mapping out and sharing genuinely, and not in just some bullshit new entrepreneur book that just says this is the map for founders. I really want to colloquially share. I think it'll take me a few years after I write a book about it and share, so that other founders, there's a legitimization and respect for how unique it is to have a founder-owned company, that you want to be a generational company, that you don't want to give away, share, and perhaps and you don't want to bring in partners that dilute that. What I find a really sacred relationship between a muse and an organism, an organization that you create. I'd really like to be hearing, I think I'd love to be hearing people at the end of my career going I'm really grateful I came across that, because I was in the position probably where you were at, where you were ready to give up, and I didn't actually acknowledge how legitimate it was, and everyone in business was like, this is so stupid, you don't know what you're doing, get someone in, give away shares, sell now, and then create something else. And when they knew that wasn't right, and hear a couple of stories of some businesses that are creating very genuine impact in bringing harmony to this planet, that knowing that I've had a little part to play in someone following that through, that's what I'd like.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Yeah. Any way we can give back and have people remember us for just positive things that we can create is always a great thing. But yeah, I appreciate your time, Mason. It was really great meeting you. Hearing about your story and everything that you have going on. And we're really excited to see your company grow and really expand into different markets globally. So I appreciate your time, Mason. And yeah, this is another episode of Scaling Secrets podcast. Until next time.